Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to our Bhaktivaibhava session. Please, you can join me with the Mangala Charana prayers. Okay. Om Agyanatimirandasya Agyananjana Salakaya Shaksurum Militanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayan Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Syam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gorange Radhe Vrindavaneshware Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarupyascha Kripa Sindhuvya Evacha Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namah Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satphala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya Sarva Lokaika Drikprada Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabhu Kali Dvanto Dita Ditya Shri Krishna Parivartita Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshaksharayate Sarvada Sarva Sevyaya Shri Krishna Janamastume Madeka Bando Matsangin Matkuro Mamahadana Manishtaraka Madvagya Madananda Namastute Asadu Sadhu Tadayim Atini Chochatakara Hanamuncha Kadachimam Premna Ritkanta Yospura Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Padma Sundari, are you still here?
Yes, Prabhu.
I just wonder if the image is on you and not on me. Maybe you can change it, because it's just they're getting just Mayapur Institute.
No, I'm not getting it, Prabhu. You are only spotlighted.
Okay.
Already spotlighted. The speaker is always spotlighted.
So that's what you see on yours, eh?
Yes, only yours only.
On mine, I see Mayapur Institute.
No,
okay,
no.
Never mind. Hare Krishna, everyone. So as I mentioned yesterday, I like to begin the class every day with some reflections from the previous class. So if you could please write something that struck you yesterday, some learning that you took from yesterday's class, something that we discussed. You can write it on the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and express it. I appreciate if everybody writes something, because this is also a way by which we can also kind of get our brains working and activated for the class. So please, yeah, go ahead. If someone would like to contribute verbally, yeah. Okay, Mahavira Rupa Prabhu, you have the hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mentioned in the chat. Maybe I will. I'll say something like which you told us yesterday. Very important things. That Lord is ever aloof, although He controls everything spiritual and material. and everything is dependent on the Lord, and one must surrender to Him and hear His glories. And our objective should be to focus our mind on Him. And the process of focusing our mind on Him and to realize God is to hear about Him and glorify Him. And for peace of mind, you mentioned that we need to reciprocate.
Okay, one point is good. One point is good. And actually, what you just shared with us is a very good summary of yesterday's class. Deeply appreciated. Very, very well done. Thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Okay, Ras Shekhar, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Bhoja. We have learned about the Purusha Sukta. Sukta means well spoken about Gabadhasha Vishnu. Hare
Okay,
Krishna.
thank you. Okay, someone else. Let's see the chat box. Okay, we have a few things there. Purusha Sukta and Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, you wrote Mahavira. Prabhu, you just contributed. We have to become free from sex desire. You have nicely described at the end of the class why sex is detrimental. Okay, remembering the point of appreciating Krishna's presence in nature. Okay, follow celibacy. Celibacy. I guess that was maybe the correction thing. Purusha Sukta prayers, the creation is 1/4. Okay, Tripat Vibhuti, Ekapat Vibhuti. Okay, we discussed the difference between Tripat Vibhuti and Ekapat Vibhuti. Yeah, the difference between material nature and spiritual nature. Yes, very good. Anything else? How the Lord is Achintya, Veda, Aveda. Well, how the Lord is Achintya, and we understood about the philosophy of Achintya, Veda, Veda Tattva, which is, you know, being referred to here in these pages of the Bhagavatam. Okay, very good. Okay, so that's good. Murari Prabhu, you want to say something quickly, and we just move on with the class for today.
Yeah, just you said about the sexual life that is put on material consciousness, that we are the enjoyer, and that we should cool the fever of this.
Yeah. Sex life, it fixes us on the consciousness of being the body and being the enjoyer. Unless it's done religiously, of course, for the purpose of procreation and that the, you know, protection of the Garbhadana samskar, doing it under those principles, in which case is Krishna. Sex life, according to religious principles, is Krishna. Okay. So then we left off on the last section we discussed was the difference between Tripat Vibhuti and Ekapat Vibhuti. And you know, one thing that yes, also what's happening now is that we're hearing the answers to the questions made to by Narad to Brahma, right? And you remember what those questions were about? Something about that? That was in chapter 5. There is all these questions about the relationship between the Lord and the creation, how the creation is maintained, what is its shelter, what are the symptoms of the creation, what is it made of. So all these questions are being answered through these chapters 5. The process of creation is being explained there. And then Purusha Sukta is answering these questions. So now we're continuing with our discussion. And we left off in verse 23, I believe. Let me just find it. 1 second. And I can share on my screen. Oh. It's very slow with this, actually. Okay. So Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, so I'm going to start with text 21 because there were some questions on the chat and WhatsApp. I think maybe this helps a little bit. 22, sorry. Yasmat andam viradyagye bhutendriya gunatmaka Tadravyang atyagati svam Govisurya ivatapam. Okay, so here it is. So I just wanted to, just wanted to read a couple of sentences. The Lord therefore generates the material manifestation by impregnating the material energy, and then within the manifestation, he expands himself as the gigantic form of the Vishvarupa. The Vishvarupa, as it was shown to Arjuna, is not the original form of the Lord. The original form is the transcendental form of Purushottama, or Krishna himself. I'm moving down towards the end of the purport. He's therefore simultaneously personal and impersonal by his inconceivable potency, or he is the one without a second, displaying complete unity in a diversity of material and spiritual manifestations. He is separate from everything, and still nothing is different from him. So this is the principle of Achintya Veda Aveda Tattva. And it's in the context of Lord Brahma's, of Narada Muni's questions. And it's actually, this is the philosophy expounded by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That basically explains us how everything there is the Lord. And therefore, like we have, there is the efficient cause, cause. I'm going to Spanish. The efficient cause, okay, and the material cause, right? This is the nimitta is the efficient cause. So in our Vaishnava, Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy, both the efficient cause and the material cause, which is called upadana, they are both the Lord. And the analogy that we usually hear is that, the efficient cause is like the potter, and the material cause is the clay. Okay, so that's upadana and nimitta and upadana. So in our Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy, both the potter is the Lord, and the material cause, the material ingredients, is also the Lord. Right? So we're moving on, and now Lord Brahma, in these subsequent verses that are coming, he is going to substantiate this principle, how the Lord is also the material cause. For us, it's kind of, in one sense, we may say, well, yeah, this is pretty obvious, but it's not obvious for most people. And this is one of the defects I find in you want to call it defect or incompleteness, that in many religious systems, the conception of God is very vague. It's very ambiguous. You don't really understand who God is. So sometimes people say, well, I don't believe in God, I don't remember, maybe it was Ravindra Swarup Prabhu who said, they said, well, maybe I also don't believe in the God that you don't believe, First of all, we need to establish who God is, So this is what is being established in the Bhagavatam. And one of the qualities of God is, as established in the Bhagavatam at the beginning, the characteristics of God is Jam Madhya Siyayataha. It means that He is the supreme source of everything. Everything emanates from Him. There is nothing else beyond Him. And Lord Brahma is presenting this in his prayers. And now he is going to, is going to once again explain how the Lord is also the material cause. So let's read. When I was born from the abdominal lotus flower of the Lord, Mahavishnu, the great person, I had no ingredients for sacrificial performances except the bodily limbs of the great personality of Godhead. So here is the Lord Brahma's dilemma. He's right at the beginning, and there is nothing by himself. And in order to start the creation, he needs to perform sacrifice. but there is nothing else but the Lord. And this is the same for us now. It's not just for Lord Brahma. If we want to please the Lord, we can only give back to him what is already his, because there is nothing else apart from him. There is this false sense of, kind of renunciation, or false sense of proprietorship also, that I do have something to renounce. But the devotees of the Lord, we understand we have nothing to renounce, and we have, in one sense, nothing to offer to the Lord, save and accept what he has already given us. And of course, the Lord is not interested in that. The Lord is interested in the mood in which we offer those things back to him. So Lord Brahma is at the beginning of the creation, and what am I going to offer in sacrifice? To the Lord. Only the Lord is here, okay? So Prabhupada in the purport explains, that, okay, I might say that, because of the pressure for time, I just would like to clarify yesterday in terms of the classes, and I don't want to discuss this too much, but generally this unit on a normal course, winter time, it takes 6 lessons, 3 hours each, take 15 minutes out for break daily. So that's about 6 by 3, 18 hours, okay? So that's the reason why I worked out 8 classes by 2, which is 16, which is less. But the thing is that as I'm looking for, because I was telling you that it's a very dense unit in one sense, and the purports are really nice. And it's a shame that we have to rush through them, So I feel it's important that that we grab this, because this is like the foundation for the whole Bhagavatam, these first 2 cantos, particularly now when we come to Chatusloki. Okay, so now I'll read a little bit from this purport. It's very nice. It said, the impersonalists argue that there is no use in worshiping the Lord when everything is nothing but the Lord himself. Now, the personalist, however, worships the Lord out of a great sense of gratitude, utilizing the ingredients born out of the bodily limbs of the Lord. The fruits and flowers are available from the body of the earth, and yet Mother Earth is worshipped by the sensible devotee with ingredients born from the earth. Similarly, Mother Ganges is worshipped by the water of the Ganges, and yet the worshipper enjoys the result of such worship. Worship of the Lord is also performed by the ingredients born from the bodily limbs of the Lord, and yet the worshipper, who is himself a part of the Lord, achieves the result of devotional service to the Lord. While the impersonalist wrongly concludes, I think someone needs to unmute themselves, some background noise is there. Worship of the Lord is also, while the impersonalist wrongly concludes that he is the Lord himself, the personalist, out of a great sense of gratitude, worships the Lord in devotional service, knowing perfectly well that nothing is different from the Lord. The devotee therefore endeavors to apply everything in the service of the Lord, because he knows that everything is the property of the Lord and that no one can claim anything as one's own. This perfect conception of oneness helps the worshipper in being engaged in his loving service, whereas the impersonalist, being falsely puffed up, remains an devotee forever without being recognized by the Lord. And Srila Prabhupada, this is the principle of Yukta Vairagya. Srila Prabhupada really implemented this principle, and he saw the point here is that the devotee, he sees how the material energy can be used in the service of the Lord. And therefore is very innovative. And, rather than reject or kind of falsely renounce, he sees how that can be engaged in the service of the Lord. And the example was there that one time Prabhupada was told by one of his disciples that, I think it was Ramakrishna, anyway, it was one of these, swamis, and he had said that, he will not even sleep in a place where there was money being kept, and there was a picture of him, someone was offering him money, and he was like, putting his hands like, oh, this is, disgusted. And Prabhupada said, you bring me bring me tons of money and take a picture of me embracing it. See, what was the concept there? Is the Lord. And it can be used in his service. Okay? For performing sacrificial ceremonies, text 24, one requires sacrificial ingredients such as flowers, leaves, and straw, along with the sacrificial altar and a suitable time. Other requirements are utensil, grains, clarified butter, honey, gold, earth, water, the Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, and Samaveda, and 4 priests to perform the sacrifice. Other necessities includes invoking the different names of the demigods by specific hymns and vows of recompense in accordance with a particular scripture for specific purposes and by specific processes. Now, Prabhupada refers here in the purport that in this age, really the process of sacrifice is Sankirtan Yagya. That's how we can take, we can please the Lord and we can derive the ultimate benefit. Okay. Thus, I had to arrange all these necessary ingredients and paraphernalia of sacrifice from the personal bodily parts of the personality of Godhead. By invocation of the demigods' names, the ultimate goal, Vishnu, was gradually attained, and thus compensation and ultimate offering were complete. Prajaschitam samarpanam. The ultimate offering, the ultimate compensation was achieved by offering everything to the Lord. 28. Thus, I created the ingredients and paraphernalia for offering the sacrifice out of the parts of the body of the Supreme Lord, the enjoyer of the sacrifice, and I performed the sacrifice to satisfy the Lord. So, this is the consciousness of the devotee, is that, you see, once we understand who or what God is, the absolute truth, then we come to understand also what is my position in relationship to that absolute truth. All right? And the Lord has established the system by which we can function in this world. And that system established by the Lord is the system of sacrifice. So basically, the material world has got 2 functions, right? One function is to give an opportunity to the living entities who so desire, going back home, back to Godhead, elevate themselves, become free from entanglement in the material world. And the other purpose is to fulfill the desires of those who actually want to enjoy separate from the Lord. But the point is that both we are functioning in this world and we have to act in this world. And by the laws of karma, whatever you do, there is a reaction. So the Lord establishes the system of sacrifice by which we can function in this world and become elevated and become and not get entangled. Okay. So sacrifice, basically, this comes from it comes from Latin. The word sacrifice comes from Latin. Okay. Sacred, facere. Facere means to make, and sacred, it basically, sacrifice means to make something sacred. So we can actually make our life sacred. We can make our activities sacred through this offering, through this process of sacrifice. Prabhupada explains in the purport. People in general are always anxious to have peace of mind or peace in the world, but they do not know how to achieve such a standard of peace in the world. Such peace in the world is obtainable by performance of sacrifice and by practice of austerity. Clear? Now, I go further down. The word sacrifice suggests dedication of one's own interest for the satisfaction of a second person. That is the way of all activities. Every man is engaging in sacrificing his interest for others, either in the form of family, society, community, country, or the entire human society. So this we see, whatever you want to achieve, even in the material world, you have to do some sacrifice. You wanna get you wanna get a good job. You gotta work really hard. You may have to get your studies, go to university, like in India, the competition at the universities to get your PhD, to get your job. Such a big sacrifice. But the point is that what is the topmost sacrifice that is actually going to bring us a full satisfaction, and it's going to give us the ultimate goal. And then when the sacrifice is directly to the Supreme Lord. I remember some years back we were doing Govardhan Parikrama, and there was Sachinandan Swami was doing full Dandava Parikrama with Bibi Govinda Maharaj, and I don't remember who else was there. Maybe Madhava Prabhu was there, and Sutakirti Prabhu, I think. And, we could see their feet, they were full of blisters and they were covered in dust and they were blissful, I mean, at least Sachinandan Swami, I remember just seeing him with a big smile in his face. And he said that nothing great in this world can be achieved without a great deal of sacrifice, Wise words. So, and what is the perfection of that sacrifice? And I'll read from the Bible, but perfection of such sacrifices is attained when they are performed for the sake of the Supreme Lord. Because the Lord is the proprietor of everything, because the Lord is the friend of all living creatures, and because he's the maintainer of the perform of sacrifice, as well as the supplier of the ingredients of sacrifices, it is he only and no one else who should be satisfied by all sacrifices. So the connection is made clear, right? Everything belongs to the Lord. All there is the Lord. So therefore, it is my duty to offer everything back to the Lord. Therefore, and Prabhupada at the end, he says, if men at all want peace in the world, they must practice sacrifice in the interest of the Supreme Proprietor and friend of all. It's a personal philosophy. The Lord is responsive. Sometimes what is the essence of our philosophy? This is one major point, that the Lord is responsive. He responds. When we try to please him, he responds. I remember many years back also, we were also in Govardhan, and Burijan Prabhu, he said that, you only need to know two things. You only need to know two things in the philosophy. What are those two things? He said, the Lord is supremely powerful and the Lord is supremely merciful, supremely powerful, supremely merciful. And this is what we're learning through the Srimad Bhagavatam, through these verses. Okay, we're moving on. My dear son, thereafter, your 9 brothers, who are the masters of living creatures, perform the sacrifice with proper rituals to satisfy both the manifested and non-manifested personalities. Thereafter, the Manus, the fathers of mankind, the great sages, the forefathers, the learned scholars, the Daityas, and mankind perform sacrifice meant to please the Lord. All the material, now these verses that we enter in now, 31 to 33, is a bit of a summary of what is being explained by Lord Brahma. All the material manifestations of the universes are therefore situated in his powerful material energies, which he accepts self-sufficiently, although he is eternally without affinity for the material modes. So this is the answer to the question of what is the shelter of the material universe. is the Lord. Narayane Bhagavati. Purport. The question put by Narada Muni before Brahma concerning the sustenance of the material creation is thus answered. Okay? Material actions and reactions, as the material scientists can superficially observe, are not basically ultimate truth in regard to creation, maintenance, and destruction. Okay? The material energy is a potency of the Lord, which is displayed in time, accepting the three qualities of goodness, passion, and ignorance in the forms of Vishnu, Brahma, and Shiva. The material energy thus works under the supreme spell of his lordship, although he is always transcendental to all such material activities. Can you give me a verse from Bhagavad Gita that illustrates this principle? You can unmute yourself.
Maya Adhyakshana Prakati Suyate Chas.
Yes, yeah. This material, and so you see, the material scientists, they only focus, they only observe the material cause. They don't see the efficient cause. Beyond this material creation, between these material elements, there is the Lord who is supervising and controlling the material energy. Okay? By his will, and at text 32, by his will, I create. This is the answer about who maintains the material creation. By his will, I create, Lord Shiva destroys, and he himself, in his eternal form as the personality of Godhead, maintains everything. He is the powerful controller of these three energies. This is the Lord. How powerful is him that the whole material manifestation, not just this universe, not just this planet, not just this place where we are at the moment, but the whole material manifestation is working perfectly like a clock under his control. And he's not involved. He's not involved. And there we go back to him sometimes, like, we may be very disturbed about what may be going on in our lives, what may be going on in the world, but he's the controller. He's standing there on the altar and he's just smiling. We have to have faith. And the moment that we actually have that faith and we understand that everything is taking place under his supervision, his control. And don't get me wrong, it's not that we shouldn't pray. Of course we should pray. But we should understand, the devotee is fearless because he understands that everything fearless, and he can be peaceful, that everything is happening under Krishna's supervision and the Krishna's control. Okay? Let's see. Trying this. So Prabhupada is giving many quotes from Bhagavad Gita explaining the same principle, okay? That everything that is Vasudev. The Lord is described here as omnipotent by three energies, three Shakti Dhrik. So primarily his three energies are internal, marginal, and external. This external energy is also displayed in the three modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. Similarly, the internal potency is also displayed in three spiritual modes, Samvit, Sandini, Hladini. The marginal potency of the living entities is also spiritual, Prakriti, Vidimaya, Param, but the living entities are never equal to the Lord. So we have two choices. And sometimes the question is raised, about surrender, and it's like a dirty word. We don't want to, don't talk to me about surrender. Like people in the material world, I bow down to no one. I am independent, right? Right. Yes, right. You are independent. Can you stop blinking your eyes, my dear sir? Can you stop going to the toilet? Can you stop growing old? Can you stop getting sick? Can you stop dying, my dear independent sir? Can you do any of these things? We are not. We are already surrendered. We're surrendered to the external energy. We surrender to our constitutional position as Tatastha Shakti. We are constitutionally surrendered, but our choice really is, who do we want to surrender? Do I want to surrender to Krishna? Or do I want to surrender to Krishna directly? Or do I want to surrender to Krishna indirectly? So when I surrender to Krishna directly, I put myself under the influence and the protection of the internal potency. And when I surrender to Krishna indirectly, I put myself under the care of, the material energy, and I'm being tossed and pinched by the three modes of material nature. So I remember His Holiness Hanumat Prashak Swami was telling one time that he was in this convention with big scientists, and the convention was something on the lines of how to control nature, And he says halfway through the presentation, they had to have a break to answer the call of nature, So how can you control? It's an illusion. So, humor aside, but the principle is very essential. And we do have some independence, but it's minute independence. The reality is that we are very dependent. Our independence is, who do we choose to depend upon? And when we are actually given the eyes to see the reality, is almost, it behooves one to actually surrender to the Supreme Lord. And this is what this wisdom, this knowledge is supposed to trigger in us, to bring out that blissful surrender. 33. Now we come into the conclusion. My dear son, whatever you inquire from me, I have thus explained to you. And you must know for certain that whatever there is, either as cause or as effect, both in the material and in spiritual worlds, is dependent on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Let's see the Sanskrit. Okay, that's cause and effect. Okay, so this is the conclusion. The complete cosmic situation, both in the material and in the spiritual manifestations of the energies of the Lord, is working and moving first as the cause and then as the effect. But the original cause is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Effects of the original cause become the causes of others, and thus everything, either permanent or temporary, is working as cause and effect. And because the Lord is the primeval cause of all persons and all energies, he is called the cause of all causes, as confirmed in Brahma Samhita. There was one famous poet, he asked Prabhupada, he said, well, who created, I think it was his father. He said, who created God? So his father asked, who created God? Someone asks you that now. If someone comes and asks you, who created God? How will you reply? I'd like to hear from everybody. We have a few people who have contributed. It's nice to hear from everybody. How would you reply? Anyone?
Hare Krishna.
Yeah?
You could say that the question itself implies his ignorance about the subject of God. It's not the type of question you ask when it comes to the Supreme.
Good, very well, very well.
Understanding. Could say that.
Yeah. And more or less that was Prabhupada's answer. He said, before you ask such a question, first of all, we need to understand what is God. And the very definition of God, it means that he has no father, in the sense that he has no cause. He is the cause of all causes. Clear? Okay, so now we're entering a new section, which is Brahma is going to explain to Narada. This is beautiful, how why his words are authoritative. Mahavira Prabhu, you have your hand up. You want to ask something? Or is that from before?
I wanted to ask from the previous work, there were three types of internal potencies, like the Samvit, Sandhini, and Hiladini. So Hiladini, I understand pleasure giving potency for the Supreme Lord, but Samvit and Sandhini, if you could kindly explain, it will be great.
Yeah, okay. Ladini, as you say, is a pleasure potency, is the pleasure that we derive from exchanging, from loving exchanges with the Lord. Samvit is the cognitive, the energy that gives us knowledge. So we have Sach, Chit, Ananda, right? So Ananda comes from Ladini, Chit comes from Samvit, and then Sandhini is the energy of the Lord, which maintains everything. Sat. So in the spiritual world, everything is Sat, Chit, Ananda. Everything is eternal. Everything is full of knowledge. Everything is full of bliss, because everything is acting under the influence of these three energies: Samvit, Sandhini, and Ladini. Okay.
Thank you, Prabhuji. And yesterday you had mentioned that somebody asked Prabhupada that why God created Maya. You explained to us that God did not create Maya, but we have created Maya ourselves. So I was not able to understand this very much.
Will someone like to answer that? Jamastami? Yeah.
Because of the desire of the jiva, then Krishna gives him full facility to try and enjoy separately from him. He turns his back on Krishna, exits the relationship, so that facility is created. So it's on the basis of that desire of the jiva, and jiva's plural, that it all takes place. That's my understanding.
Mahavira Prabhu, is it clear?
Yeah, it is clear. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Thank you. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Because it's not, it's not that the jiva, we created Maya as such, but it's based on the desire. Because we have the desire, then Krishna has to put us in illusion. We want to be God, and we can only be God if we're in illusion. So Krishna gave us that facility. O Narada, because I have caught hold of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, with great zeal, whatever I say has never proved to have been false, nor is the progress of my mind ever deterred, nor are my senses ever degraded by temporary attachment to matter. So the principle here is because the devotee is aligned, the devotee's desires are aligned with the Lord. Whatever the devotee says or whatever the devotees do happens, and the Lord Himself protects His devotee. So on this basis, the words of Brahma are authoritative. And let's read a little bit from the purport. It says, it's a very long purpose, very nice, but let's see. The Vedic knowledge is infallible because it comes down directly from the Supreme Lord and to the heart of Brahma. And since he is the most perfect living being, Brahmaji is always correct to the letter. And this is because Lord Brahma is a great devotee of the Lord who has earnestly accepted the lotus feet of the Lord as a supreme truth. Okay? So first point here, okay? Why Brahma is always correct to the letter? He is a great devotee who has earnestly accepted the lotus feet of the Lord. So this is what makes him qualified. It's not being Lord Brahma as being the most, the original living being or the engineer of the universe. No, it's because he is a devotee. He is a devotee, and because he has earnestly that lowlium, that desire to please the Lord, then the devotee becomes empowered by the Lord. When we, as I said, when we align ourselves with the mission of the Lord, we gain that, we get that empowerment. The Brahma Samhita, which is compiled by Brahmaji, he repeats the aphorism, Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. I am a worshipper of the original personality of Godhead, Govinda, the primeval Lord. So whatever he says, whatever he thinks, and whatever he does, normally in his mood, so whatever he says, whatever he thinks, and whatever he does, normally in his mood, are to be accepted as truth because of his direct and very intimate connection with Govinda, the primeval Lord. Sri Govinda, who pleasingly accepts the loving transcendental service of his devotees, gives all protection to the words and actions of his devotees. I will go further down. It's all nectar, but let's see. The devotees are, and I would like you to comment on this. The devotees, it says, because sometimes the declaration of Govinda himself may seem contradictory to mundane creatures, but the mundaner will never find any contradiction in the words of the Lord's devotees. The devotees are especially protected by the Lord so that they may remain infallible. Therefore, the process of devotional service always begins in the service of the devotee who appears in the cyclic succession. Okay. And because the devotee's service is accepted by the Lord in full reciprocation, the Lord is also a person in his complete and spiritual embodiment. The devotee's senses, being engaged in the service of the Lord, never go astray under the attraction of false material enjoyment. The plans of the devotee never go in vain, and all this is due to the faithful attachment of the devotee for the service of the Lord. Comments on that? How could that be misused? For example, Yamashtami, will you have your hand up? Or is that from before? Unmute yourself.
That was now, but it wasn't in regard to your question. It's a point that like Prabhupada struggled for so many years to satisfy the order of his spiritual master. And there's no question about his earnest, how earnestly he was endeavoring, like with the League of Devotees and this and that. And it appeared, at least on the surface, that there wasn't, that he wasn't, didn't really accomplish what he was intending to do. So I think sometimes devotees will go through periods in their devotional career. This is an example where they may be endeavoring and they may have this earnestness, but yet the Lord is, like Prabhupada is, Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita describes it as a lifetime in preparation. And so part of that preparation was, against all odds to keep going, that the Vyashyatmika buddhi, that full determination, no matter how tough it became, he would keep going. So, sometimes the perspective is spread over a long period of time, and the results manifest like that. Anyway, just some thoughts in that regard, because it could be taken, well, no, wait a minute, I'm trying really hard. What's happening? How come it's not working. But that's also Krishna. He's there, but that faith also has to be there, that ultimately the endeavor, if it's very sincerely offered to Krishna, then it will be successful.
Thank you for that. Yeah, so there is the aspect of time, right? Krishna will manifest those things in due course whenever he pleases. But in our practical life, when we hear these things, you know, how practically speaking, this can help us in our execution of devotional service. I'm just throwing this out for everybody. When we hear statements like this, anyway, I'm even not just answering my question, comments on this. Asaf.
Yeah, I have a comment. It is said that when the demigods face difficulties, so they first of all they go to Brahma, and if Brahma cannot help out, then they go to the ocean of the causal ocean, right? And then Brahma and the demigods they pray to the Lord, but only Brahma actually can hear the instructions or the whatever the solution from the Lord. So I'm just saying it is a comment that Brahma is he's the greatest devotee because of his very strong attachment to the lotus feet of the Lord.
Of course, you know that. Yeah, I understood that basically is that level of reciprocation of the Lord is proportional to the surrender. And yeah, Lord Brahma was, like you said, when they went, only Lord Brahma could hear it. So perhaps we're not fully tuned in with the desires of the Lord, and this is the the aspiration for us as sadhakas. That I remember myself. I was doing Sankirtan for many years, and sometimes it was just like so tough, I mean, it was so tough. And I was just praying to the Lord, please, to Lord Nityananda, in fact, please, don't let me stand in the way of your mercy. That was the prayer the whole day in between people. Don't let me stand there. And I couldn't understand, like sometimes I had been, left the house really early, hit the street, like start straight away, don't stop. And the whole day I wouldn't sit down once, like no eating, nothing, and not distributing any books. The books were not going out. And I used to say, well, Krishna, we're making all this sacrifice, since we've done all this, why don't you just kind of let the books fly, I'm here. And it took me years to understand that actually he was purifying me. One day just kind of, I just click, it's purifying me. And, the Lord has his ways, and, we are not, beggars are not choosers. We're just lucky enough to be engaged in service. But the plans of the devotee never go in vain. We still have, that desire, that aspiration to please the Lord. And in due course, Krishna willing, we may be able to do so. Karuna Taramati.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Please, if I'm wrong, please correct me. Prabhuji, that's what I've gathered from here. Whatever you do in this life is carried forward to the next life. This was the first point. And if a devotee...
Say again, say once more. Say once more.
Whatever you do in this life is carried forward to the next life. So nothing goes in vain. So Lord will help us. Like suppose if I am doing some
Clear.
spiritual.
It is clear. Got
Yes.
it.
Second is, if a devotee chants Mahamantra every day with love and associates with other devotees, like in end, Lord will come to take him. And in fact, Lord arranges devotee to be with him in the end also, so that
Yeah.
he can easily go. And third point is, Lord helps the devotee if he surrenders fully. So that we should have faith, like as you told us, that we should have first faith in Lord for this. We should
Nice.
totally surrender to him and
Very
have
nice.
faith. That's it.
Thank you. And this is the point, that we have to have that faith. And one thing that I kind of always appreciated, when you see pictures of Prabhupada, you see Prabhupada running around, like picking up the phone and doing multitasking. Prabhupada is always very grave, a lot of the time very cheerful, kind of joyful, talking with his disciples. You don't see him stressed, do you? Is that, you may see him in grave, okay, sometimes, but like running around and like, oh my God, I have this devotee running away, or, this project and that project. And, he was in touch with the spiritual energy. He was just an instrument. And for me, that's, obviously that's a desire, that we see that for devotees who are, great devotees, things just happen. They have that Shakti, and they really, they are able to achieve great things, very great things. Practically, of course, with big surrender, but it's by their purity. That's my point. It's by their purity. It's not by the material efforts. So as devotees, we are our you could say focus. Needless to say, we have to work really hard with the material energy also to make things happen, like Prabhupada did. No, I'm not saying Prabhupada his schedule was extremely tight. He worked so hard. But the point is that he was depending on Krishna. He wasn't depending on his effort. And I've seen, by being in the close proximity of senior Vaishnavas, how the Lord makes arrangements. And it's so beautiful to see. But we may not, things may not be happening to us because of what, the Lord is purifying us. Anyway, these are just some thoughts. But it is a very interesting thing. The Lord, how the Lord, fulfills the desires of the devotee. And therefore, Brahma is saying here that his words are true because he is a devotee of the Lord, and because, therefore he is completely authorized. Now, although I am known as the great Brahma, this is very, very sweet and very nice. And it shows why Lord Brahma is to be trusted. Why Lord Brahma is to we can hear from him. Now hear his consciousness. And how long does Lord Brahma lives for? What is it? 311 trillion years? And a few billion years, we don't need to even count that, right? I mean, it's inconceivable for us how great personality he is. Now, here is what he says. Although I am known as the great Brahma, perfect in the disciplic succession of Vedic wisdom, and although I have undergone all austerities and am an expert in mystic powers and self-realization, and although I am recognized as such by the great forefathers of the living entities who offer me respectful obeisances, still I cannot understand him, the Lord, the very source of my birth. The most intelligent, most powerful person, he's saying, I cannot understand him. The same topic is going to come in the next chapter. And when same topics are coming again and again, it means it's important. And this is the mood of the Goswamis also. That I haven't attained the Lord. But I remember also in book distribution, you meet some Hindus and you try to give them the Bible. Oh, I know Krishna. I know Krishna. But here is the Bhagavad Gita. I know Bhagavad Gita. I know Bhagavad Gita. Have you got a spiritual master? I don't have. You know, it's like I remember some years back, one devotee, he was telling me, "Oh, I read Bhagavatam already. I read the Bhagavatam. I read Chaitanya Charitamrita. You know, I read it once. I know it. You know." And I was thinking to myself, well, did you really read it? Because when you actually read Bhagavatam, the more you try to understand the Bhagavatam, the more you realize how much you don't know. The Bhagavatam is deep as like the ocean, because it's Krishna, and yes, one verse we could, you know, you can just study one verse for months, and you know, when we're doing a course like this, where we are like mining the Bhagavatam in one sense. We're collecting jewels from the Bhagavatam, and I hope you are. That you're writing these jewels that they are hidden in the depth of the ocean, which is the Bhagavatam. And that those jewels, they come out when we churn the Bhagavatam in the association of the devotees. So therefore, that's why I was emphasizing yesterday that it's very important the mood in which we enter this study, the mood in which we enter these classes, because that's gonna be, you know, that's going to determine to what degree we are going to understand the Bhagavatam, which is not just about getting your closed book test done or your essay, but it's about actually realizing Krishna. So what is the mood? That Lord Brahma is saying, I don't know. I don't understand him. Famous verse in one of the Upanishads, maybe Yamastami Prabhu remembers this verse. I think I mentioned it to him before, but I don't remember now. But there is one verse where it says, Prabhupada quotes it a lot, it says, you know, it's not by austerities, it's not by sacrifice, it's not by anything that I can be known. So I can only, the Lord can be known only by him whom he chooses. So we want to be chosen by the Lord. We want to get the Lord's attraction. And then we stand a chance to understand a little bit. Okay? So this is what is explaining. It's beautiful purport. And I'm going to read it. Brahma, the greatest of all living creatures within the universe, is admitting his failure to know the Supreme Lord despite his vast learning in the Vedic wisdom, despite his austerity, penance, mystic powers, and self-realization, and despite being worshipped by the great Prajapatis, the forefathers of the living entities. So these qualifications are not sufficient to know the Supreme Lord. Now, you see, there is a debate nowadays going on between the atheists and theists, right? Some people who are materially super qualified
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I am unable to hear anything.
Yeah,
Is it a problem at my end?
No, I also lost connection.
Yeah, everything is just frozen.
Erotic is frozen. Let me call him. Where's my phone?
Now he's disconnected, so he's probably gonna connect back.
Good.
Oh, you are on mute.
Hare Krishna. Sorry, my computer was plugged, but it wasn't properly plugged and it just went out. My apologies. So we are all here. I hope I didn't lose any of you. Okay, so I was just saying there is a debate nowadays between the theists and the theists and the atheists and the theists, right? And sometimes we have very qualified people materially who are very adamant that God doesn't exist. And this may bewilder us sometimes, that, you know, how such a qualified person, he doesn't actually believe in God. But we see clearly in the scriptures that material qualification is no qualification to know the Lord, and that the Lord cannot be known by any empiric means. It's only through devotion. It's only through devotion, and it's only through a submissive attitude that the Lord can be known. So sometimes there is the argument, and you know, the atheists have got all these arguments against the existence of God, which I'm yet to hear a good argument so far. But the one thing that is common for all of them, Yamastami Brook, I think you have, can you unmute yourself? I think noise is coming. Yeah. There is, the problem is that, you know, or the common denominator for all of them is that every single one of them have a challenging attitude towards God. So it just reinforces even more the fact that there is a God. To me, anyway, because it just proves what Krishna is saying in the Gita. He reserves the right to be exposed to anyone. So even a person as qualified as Lord Brahma, he himself, he cannot understand the Lord. Okay? He said, now Brahma, and I cannot share my screen somehow. I am wondering in the future if I can just give you my Zoom and you just join my Zoom.
Hare Krishna.
The host.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Karuna Tara Mataji can make you host now.
Oh, yeah?
Karuna
Okay.
Tara Mataji, you have to make Prabhuji host.
Because I would like to be able to share the screen.
Yeah.
But if I use my Zoom, it's kind of easier, actually, much easier. So I may just do that from tomorrow.
Karuna Tara Mataji.
Okay, I'll continue. You have the books anyway, so it's okay. You can read from your books. I continue with the purport. So Brahmaji could understand the Lord to a little extent only when he was trying to serve him by the eagerness of his heart. Read out Kantya Yavata, which is the devotional service mood. Therefore, the Lord can be known only by the sincere mood of eagerness for service, and not by any amount of material qualification as scientists or speculative philosophers, or by attainment of mystic powers.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, you can share the
I know.
screen because you are host now.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, clear? Is it making sense? Okay, so we're moving on with more verses.
The previous one, can you show again? Because I missed it, Prabhuji.
It was just there. Is it purport to
Okay.
text? This text,
Okay, this we covered already.
Text 35.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful purport, and it's many more things, but we're gonna. Okay, I'll just read this. It says, no one can know the personality of God in full. Okay, but at least to a certain extent, one can know the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, by self-surrender and a devotional attitude and nothing else. Now, Bhagavad Gita, if you remember, what is that verse? Asam sayam samagram mam. He says, Krishna says that now you can know me in full. You remember verse number 1 of chapter 7? Now here, O son of Prita, how you can, with mind attached to me, how you can know me in full, free from doubt. But here it says that no one can know the Supreme Lord in full. So, you know, when Krishna is speaking about the in the Bhagavad Gita that we can know him in full, no one can know the Lord in fullness, but the acharyas express and present that asansayam samagram man, it means that we can know him full. It means that we can know him as Bhagavan, the full realization of the absolute. There is 3 levels of realization: Brahman, Paramatman, Bhagavan. So we can know him as a supreme person, but no one, not even the Lord himself, can know himself. Can know him. Knowing in the Lord knows himself in full, and that's why he appeared as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because he could not appreciate himself in full. He needed to, you know, he couldn't understand what were the qualities that Radharani was seeing in him. Text 36. Therefore, it is best for me to surrender unto his feet, which alone can deliver one from the miseries of repeated birth and death. Such surrender is all auspicious and allows one to perceive all happiness. Even the sky cannot estimate the limits of its own expansion. So what can others do when the Lord himself is unable to estimate his own limits? Beautiful. Okay, we'll move on. It says, it is said in the scriptures, Brahma Sokyam Tvanantam, spiritual happiness is unlimited. Here it is said that even the Lord cannot measure such happiness. This does not mean that the Lord cannot measure it and is therefore imperfect in that sense. The actual position is that the Lord can measure it, but the happiness in the Lord is also identical with the Lord on account of absolute knowledge. So the happiness derived from the Lord may be measured by the Lord, but the happiness increases again, and the Lord measures it again, and then again the happiness increases more and more, and the Lord measures it more and more, and as such there is eternally a competition between increment and measurement. So much so that the competition is never stopped, but goes on unlimitedly ad infinitum. Spiritual happiness is anandam buddhi vardhanam, or the ocean of happiness which increases. The material ocean is stagnant, but the spiritual ocean is dynamic. I think we were discussing that yesterday, right? How when Krishna sees Radharani, he becomes more beautiful, he becomes happier. And so, but the point also being made here is that, you know, that the spiritual energy is dynamic, right? The spiritual happiness is dynamic. Sometimes foolish materialists also claim, so your God is all powerful, so can he create a mountain that he cannot climb? You know, these foolish arguments they present, right? Can he create a mountain that he cannot climb? And the answer is yes. He creates the mountain and then he climbs it, you know, afterwards. So you see, the point is that the Lord is transcendental, is beyond any material conception, is Swarat. Swarat means is self-rule. Is Abhignat Swarat. Swarat means is independent. Talking about independence. The Lord is not bound by any material laws. He can do whatever he likes. Okay? Since neither Lord Shiva nor you nor I could ascertain the limits of spiritual happiness, how can other demigods know it? And because all of us are bewildered by the illusory external energy of the Supreme Lord, we can see only this manifested cosmos according to our individual ability. 38. Let us offer our respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Lord and to that Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose incarnations and activities are chanted by us for glorification, though he can hardly be fully known as he is. Okay, so now this is the transition between this chapter and the next chapter. And we're going to hear a glorification of Karanodaksha Vishnu, the Purusha avatars. If you remember at the beginning of the Bhagavatam, when the sages asked Sutta Goswami about relating the pastimes of the Lord, two different types of appearances of the Lord were referred to. Some of them, they were the incarnations in regards to the creation, and the incarnations in regards to the different pastimes he performs in the material world to reclaim the living entities back home, back to Godhead. Dineshwara Krishna Prabhu, you have your hand up. Please tell us.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, yes, it was just mentioned that we cannot know the Lord in full. So to what extent can we know the Lord according to our realization and according to Srila Prabhupada's books? Maybe if you could expand a bit further on this. Secondly, Janmashtami Prabhu posted that we did have 2.5 hours.
One question at a time, otherwise I lose my. So
Okay.
that's one question, right? Okay. So well, I think I just answered it. Basically, the Lord can be only known to the extent that he reveals himself to us. And when we're talking about knowing the Lord, it's not an intellectual kind of exercise. We're talking about revelation. We're talking about an experience of the Lord, which goes beyond, any kind of, intellectual, understanding, but it's an experience that we have. And the Bhagavatam explains Bhakti Parishanubhavo Viraktir Anyatra Chai Satrikaika. It says that one, through the process of bhakti, just as when one eats, he gains nourishment, satisfaction, and freedom from hunger. Similarly, through the process of devotional service, one gains realization of the Supreme Lord, one gains satisfaction, and then one also gains virakti or detachment from the material world, according to the level of our devotional service. So, to what extent we can know the Lord? Answer: we can know the Lord as Bhagavan. That's the complete realization of the absolute truth, which is realized, and this is what has been discussed actually through the second canto. We heard about different processes of self-realization, and through those different processes of self-realization, one gains different understandings of the Supreme Lord according to the consciousness of the practitioner. But with the process of bhakti, we gain access to the topmost realization, which is Bhagavan. But that realization is going to depend to the degree of our spiritual development. Okay, so we can realize the Supreme as Bhagavan, as Krishna. How much, what is the depth of our realization is going to depend on the degree of our commitment, the degree of our practices. Realization and revelation is proportionate to the degree of our commitment. When we become serious in our spiritual life, Krishna makes things happen. He reveals things. He makes the arrangements because we want him. We really want him, but maybe some of us we're still, holding on to the material energy. And you think about it, okay, Dinesh, but I would like to see your face. It's hard for me to answer someone when I'm not seeing the face. I mean, it's not mandatory, but I must say that makes everything a lot nicer when the devotees are keeping the cameras on. So it's just a hint, direct hint, but Yeah, so I was just saying that I lost my train of thought, but basically the point remains that, yeah, Krishna will reveal himself to the degree that we want him. Yeah, I was just saying that when you are, even when you're preaching, okay, in your preaching, if you do some preaching, how much you can give to the people that you're preaching is very much depending on the person that you're preaching to, is it not? Because if you speak too much to them and you just say something that is going to challenge their reality, you may blow them away. You may disturb them, and they may leave Krishna consciousness. Clear or not? Do you experience this? That you have to measure your words when you preach to people, and
Absolutely, Prabhu.
absolutely right. You have to, because if you give them the whole thing, they may get indigestion, spiritual indigestion. Okay, so Krishna with us is similar thing. He wants to give to us, but are we ready to take it? The spiritual master, he wants to give us. He wants to give us as much, but he can't give, because if he gives too much, it may be a problem. So to the degree that we're sincere, to the degree that we are earnestly wanting the Lord, to that degree that revelation is taking place. Because along with that revelation, it comes a surrender. That revelation is going to disturb my material conceptions. I may not want to give them up. It will challenge my material conceptions, right? So therefore, but what is being explained through the Bhagavatam, this is available for everyone. Everyone who wants it. Man proposes, God disposes, right? Is that answering your question?
Yes, Prabhu, I appreciated the depth of your answer. Thank you very much.
Okay, so you have yeah.
Sorry, yeah, I just wanted to mention Janmashtami Prabhu posted on the group that some of our previous units sessions, we had 2.5 hour and 3 hour sessions. So sorry to bring it up now, but maybe if we could determine from the rest of the group if they're keen to expand our time limit in terms of the sessions. We could start 30 minutes earlier or 30 minutes later. It's
Okay,
dependent on
write on, everybody should write on the chat box. That will be the easiest way to do it. And by the way, when I logged out, whatever it was on the chat box, I lost it. So if there was any questions, I cannot see them anymore. And my apologies. I believe there was one question there and I didn't read it. But please don't hands up. Just put on the chat box. Stick to 2 hours or 2.5 hours. Yeah, I will give you the OBA. I'll give the OBA question to Padma Sundari, or I will post it on the WhatsApp today or tomorrow. Okay. So regarding, okay, so let's just do it like this. We have, it'll be easier like this. We have 23 participants. Okay. So whoever is in favor of time in 2.5 hours, just write it down and I put it on the chat box. And then I count, and if there is, okay. Okay, so many people are okay with 2.5 hours. Now stop there. No need to. Anyone who is not happy with 2.5 hours, and we're not going to crucify you for this. We're not going to, what you call it, expel you for this. I fully respect that. It's no problem. In fact, I asked Padma Sundari Mataji initially to have 2.5 hours, and she said no. So that's why it wasn't proposed, Asaf Cohen stay with 2 hours. Okay, we have one person who stay with 2 hours. Anyone else? Two, Mahavira Prabhu. Okay, so I understand that some people are neutral because I know everybody commented on this. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Sorry, 8, 9. Okay, so we have 3 to 9, 4 So I think it's enough people who wants to stay with 2 hours, which was planned initially, and we gotta respect that. Okay, so we stick to 2 hours. Hare Krishna. And if you want to change this, you decide among yourselves on the WhatsApp group, because I don't have time today to spend, like, we already tied for time. Okay. But I will say, we have at least 4 or 5 people who want 2 hours. People may have other commitments, and we have to respect that. Okay. And that was the plan. That was what basically Padmasundari Mataji rightly said. So it's okay. 2 hours is fine. We have 4 weekends, no problem. Okay. Hare Krishna. Can we move on? Because it's just this. Actually, this should not have been done at this moment. It just breaks the whole flow of the class. Should have done at the end. Okay. So we kind of now go back to the Bhagavatam. Okay. And if you have any more to discuss with this, we can do it at the end. Okay. Many people want 2.5 hours, so as well. At the end, you have time to think about it, and at the end we can just make a final decision. Okay. But initially, I will say that there is 4 people who want to stick to the 2 hours. We gotta respect that. Okay, let's go back. Text 39. Yamastam Isaac. Okay. The Supreme Original Personality of God, the Lord Sri Krishna, expanding his plenary portion as Mahavishnu, the first incarnation, creates this manifested cosmos, but he is unborn. The creation, however, takes place in him, and the material substance and manifestations are all himself. He maintains them for some time and absorbs them into himself again. Okay, so as I said, the point is being established already that the Lord can only be known by revelation, and that a realization of the absolute truth takes place by hearing about him. So Brahma is now praising Karanodaksha Vishnu, the Purusha avatars. And as I said, there are 2 types of incarnations in regards to the material world. One of them is in regards to the creation, and the other ones are in regards to the pastimes. So at the end of this chapter, we're hearing about, at the end, we heard actually about Karanodaksha Vishnu throughout the previous chapters, Purushavata. But now the Lord Brahma is praising Karanodaksha Vishnu. The personality of Godhead is pure, being free from all contaminations of material tinges. He is the absolute truth and the embodiment of full and perfect knowledge. He is all-pervading, without beginning or end, and without rival. O Narada, O great sage, the great thinkers can know him when completely freed from all material hankerings, and when sheltered under undisturbed conditions of senses. Otherwise, by untenable arguments, all is distorted, and the Lord disappears from our sight. So the same point, the Lord can only be known by when the Lord actually wants to reveal himself. Karanarnavasai Vishnu is the first incarnation of the Supreme Lord, and he is the master of eternal time, space, cause, and effects, mind, the elements, the material ego, the modes of nature, the senses, the universal form of the Lord, Garbhodaksha Vishnu, and the sum total of all living beings, both moving and non-moving. I myself, Lord Shiva, Lord Vishnu, great generators of living beings like Daksha and Prajapati, yourselves, Narada and the Kumaras, heavenly demigods like Indra and Chandra, the leaders of the Burloka planets, the leaders of the earthly planets, the leaders of the lower planets, the leaders of the Gandharva planets, the leaders of the Vidyadhara planets, the leaders of the Charanaloka planets, the leaders of the Yakshas, Rakshas, and Uragas, the great sages, the great demons, the great atheists, and the great spacemen, as well as the dead bodies, evil spirits, Satans, jinn, Kushmandas, great aquatics, great beasts, and great birds, etc. In other words, anything and everything which is exceptionally possessed of power, opulence, mental and perceptual dexterity, strength, forgiveness, beauty, modesty, opulence, and breeding, whether in form or formless, may appear to be the specific truth and the form of the Lord, but actually they are not so. They are only a fragment of the transcendental potency of the Lord. 46. I shall state, now I shall state one after another the transcendental incarnations of the Lord known as Lila avatars. Hearing of their activities counteracts all foul matters accumulated in the ear. These pastimes are pleasing to hear and are able and are to be relished. Therefore, they are in my heart. So this is the essence of the Bhagavatam, which is being presented again and again throughout, is that this is our process. Our process is to hear about Krishna. When we hear about Krishna, the heart becomes cleansed. The more we hear about Krishna, the more we become attached to Krishna. The more we are attached to Krishna, the more we want to become absorbed in hearing about Krishna. And therefore, this is the importance of actually studying the Bhagavatam and sharing the Bhagavatam with the world, because the Lord, as I said, that he performed his pastimes of the creation as the Purusha avatars to create the material world. And the material world is there to give an opportunity for the living entities to go back home to Godhead. But also he incarnates himself as the Lila avatars for the purpose of purifying our desire, so that our desire becomes to want to go back home, back to Godhead, to want to be back with the Lord, to want to exchange, to have loving exchanges with the Lord. And we can develop this desire by hearing about him. So the purpose of the whole material creation is to give an opportunity for us to go back home, back to Godhead. And that's achieved by hearing. So when we're actually studying the Bhagavatam, when we're hearing the Bhagavatam, we are fulfilling the purpose of the creation. We are actually, everything that is going on in the world is meant to bring us to the point to sit down and hear about Krishna. So important. And this is a very, very, very nice purport. I'm just gonna, I have it actually in my book. Okay, let's see. Okay, 46, 47. Here. What is this? Okay, never mind. As it was said in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, one cannot be fully satisfied by hearing unless and until one is given a chance to hear of the transcendental activities of the Lord. Okay, I'm going to read further down. It says, every living entity has a tendency to hear pleasing messages, and as such, almost every one of us is inclined to hear news and talks broadcast by the radio stations. But the difficulty is that no one is satisfied at heart by hearing all those messages. The cause of such dissatisfaction is the incompatibility of the message with the innermost stratum of the living soul. This transcendental literature is especially prepared by Srila Vyasadeva to give the utmost satisfaction to the people in general by narration of the activities of the Lord, as instructed by Sri Narada Muni to Srila Vyasadeva. Such activities of the Lord are principally of two varieties. This is what I was talking. One concerns the mundane manifestation of the material creative force, the Purusha avatars, and the other deals with his pastimes in the form of different incarnations in terms of time and place. There are innumerable incarnations of the Lord, like the waves of the river flowing constantly in and out. Okay, so now having understood these, we're moving into chapter 7, which is entitled The Scheduling Incarnations. So Brahmaji now is going to describe these incarnations. I'll read from the purport at the end. It says, Sri Brahmaji is thus attempting to narrate the principal incarnations of the Lord so that they may be drunk by Narada as transcendental nectar. Okay? Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purpose of the second chapter, of the second canto, 6th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Purusha Sukta Confirmed. And we're moving into chapter 7, scheduling incarnations with specific functions. Someone is there?
What does that mean?
Indira, please mute your mic.
Sorry, Prabhu.
No problem. How can we get a commentary of Shiva? I can send you this commentary if you want, no problem. I can put it on the if you want it, I can put it on the WhatsApp group. Okay, so Mahavira Prabhu, hand up.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhuji. In this verse, the purport you mentioned, it is mentioned about the news. So we are following the principles of devotional service. So what is your guidance and recommendation for us hearing about the news? So we should hear about the news, or we should not hear about the news?
I think it's personal. You gotta see what is the effect that has on you.
Okay.
I can tell you what I do.
Yes,
Okay.
Prabhuji, please tell.
Somehow I didn't watch the news for like about, I don't remember, more than a decade, maybe 12, 13 years. I never watched the news. As a brahmachari, I was like aloof. I didn't know who was the prime minister. I was totally, it was not required for me, I was just simple brahmachari. I didn't. And then I started to watch the news here and there, but not much. And generally every Ekadashi, every Kartika will do a news fast along with other things. And this will usually go until January, February. It will last for a few months. And then somehow it will gradually. But anyway, I don't watch the news. Last time I looked at the news, it was in September last year. And I feel that if there is something that you need to know, you will know. Because it just comes to you anyway, So it's just, it really is a waste of time. Plus, most of the stuff that you get in the news, is it really what's happening? Or is it what they want to tell you? And even if it's what they want to tell you, can you do anything about it? You can pick up a newspaper from 10 years ago and read it, and it's going to have the same effect that if you read one from today, So, because maybe you have a particular service or which requires for you to know what's going on, But we have so little time. Let's use it properly,
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you very much for your answer. It gives me the complete guidance, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Okay, Asaf.
Prabhu, I would like to ask a question, but it's like it refers to the beginning part of the chapter 6, where we mentioned that the sex desire is the strongest. And when we spoke about that, I was just thinking that the nectar of instruction, in the nectar of instruction, verse 1, so Prabhupada says the tongue is the strongest of all the senses.
Yeah, we're not saying, I mean, what is being said, and it is true, you're right. But what is being said here is that the highest enjoyment that we can get in the material world is through sex desire, through sex life. And therefore is the hardest thing to give up.
Okay.
Is the answering the question?
Yes, and well, maybe half, but we don't have to dwell on it. It's okay.
No, go for it. Let's explore it more. I mean, quickly.
I mean, because if I remember correctly, Prabhupada says that the tongue is the most difficult to control.
Prabhupada is quoting Bhaktivaibhava Thakur, yeah.
Yeah, and if I remember another thing correctly, that Prabhupada said that the last thing we before leaving this world is to give up the desire to taste palatable foods. No, so I'm just trying to find the connection between the desire of the tongue and the desire of sex.
Okay, so I'll try to answer as to the degree I understood. Basically, even scientifically, the tongue is a lot more, there are a lot more nerves in the tongue that there are on the genitals. Okay, so the tongue can experience so much. And when we are talking about, you know, the tongue is the most voracious and uncontrollable. That's what is explained by Bhaktivaibhava Thakur. He's not just talking about eating, but he's talking about speaking. It's very difficult to conquer over the tongue in this world. Okay. And then, according to the nectar of instruction, maybe Janmastami can also add to this something. According to the nectar of instruction, these senses are in line: tongue, belly, and genitals. When the tongue is not controlled, therefore we eat too much. You know, we want to, you know, and then that also agitates the belly, the hunger. We're constantly hunger. Our minds are disturbed, trying to feel the belly. And when the mind is disturbed, the genitals, and when we eat too much, that creates pressure on the genitals, and we become more agitated. So I remember many years back that one devotee, he asked His Holiness Yadvaita Swami, he says, how can I maintain my brahmacharya, you know? And Yadvaita Swami said, eat less, you know? So the point is that if we want to control the sex urge, it begins by controlling the tongue. It begins by controlling the tongue in what we eat, how much we eat, also controlling the belly, how much we eat, and by what we speak. Because if we speak, if we also commit Vaishnava Parad, if we criticize devotees, if we speak Prajalpa, that also agitates the mind. So if we want to conquer over sex desire, we have to conquer over the tongue. They're intimately related. Now, what keeps us bound to this material world, and we're talking about sex desire, is basically the desire of enjoy the opposite sex, to exploit, to control, to satisfy the demand of the sense of the it's basically lust. You see, when talking about sex desire, also I will say as well that sex desire can be gross and subtle. So sex, you know, subtle sex desire is the desire for adoration, distinction, gain. So it is not just the, you know, gross part. Someone may have been able to give up the gross part of sex desire, but he has not given up the subtle part, and it's the desire for self-aggrandizement. So anyway, I don't know if I'm beating around the bush. I'm not. The question, your question basically is exactly what. So let's see if I've answered it.
Yes, yes, I was looking for this direction of answer. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you.
I felt
Ya
it.
más también, ya. Ya más también, Prabhu.
I was just going to say that, the sex desire, it leads into a whole bodily consciousness, which puts us in the center of the universe. There's a verse, it's 11:2:37. Bayam duti yabini veshata shari shayadapita shaviparyo smiti. Tanmaya yato Buddha abhijetan bhaktyai kayesham Guru Deva Tattva. So that we go through a role reversal. Rather than seeing Krishna as the Supreme Lord, we become the Supreme Lord. It's like a Viparyo Smriti. Prabhupada translates it as a role reversal. So that's bodily consciousness is, Hammameti.
Yeah, and
it's what binds us. Once there was a discussion between Srila Prabhupada and Brahmananda. Brahmananda, when he first joined the movement, was still attending the university. And he was in a psychology class, and the professor started speaking about how everything was driven by sex desire. And then Brahmananda tried to defeat him with philosophy from Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada said, no, the professor's right. So it's really what makes the world in the material world. It's the glue that keeps us here.
Yeah.
So that's just what we've got to deal with. And like Radhika says, it's, the subtle is even sometimes more difficult. Like sometimes you see brahmacharis or even sannyasis that have, a lot of subtle desires still. They recognize it and they're working on purifying it. So all encompassing, and then the relationships, this is what's being stressed in this section of the Bhagavatam, that at the end of life, we have to disassociate from the family relationships so that we can become free from the bodily conception.
Thank you. Murli Manohar Prabhu wrote, could say that the implications of uncontrolled genitals have more of a serious consequence. And in order to help control the genitals, control of the tongue is recommended. Could you expand a little bit on that, Murli Manohar Prabhu? If it's okay.
Yeah, I think you touched on it. You was quoting from the Nectar of Instruction in the tongue, the belly and genitals come in a line. So by controlling one, then you help to control the other. So
yeah,
like if we are not able to control the tongue, there's a good chance we're not going to be able to control the more stronger urges, like the urges of the genitals. So
yeah, I remember actually Veera Gopal is here, so I remember we were doing this diet, very strict diet. I don't know if he's still doing it. I did it for about 2.5 months, and I got an insight. I got like a realization about how what we eat is connected with this with the sex urge, connected with the mind. Because I was observing this fast, which involve, not eating any sugar, no grains, no fruits. Only eating once a day, really, a little soup in the morning. It was very strict. And my mind was so peaceful. And I was thinking that, gosh, when the Goswamis, they were taking just a little buttermilk daily. They knew what they were doing. They knew. Because eating, whatever you put in your system, it affects your mind so much. So even if it's prasadam, and even if it's good prasadam, but if you eat more than you're supposed to, affects everything, your subtle body. So for me, I remember when I did this fast, I thought, gosh, I wish I would have known this earlier on in my life, because I don't think the culture in ISKCON, with all due respects, is so much of controlling this urge to eat. You know, we eat a lot, and we eat a lot of grains, and we eat a lot of things that are, you know, not so good. Okay, so it's up to the individual now. And you know, like now we've been doing on lockdown, eating healthily at home, and is such an important aspect if you want to stay, you know, steady in your mind, productive, stop procrastination, stop having to sleep during the day, stop having to struggle with your mind. Watch out for your diet. That's my advice. You know, that was my, I don't know, Bira Gopal, maybe he can say something. He was doing the same diet. Are you there, Bira Gopal Prabhu?
Yes, Nams, my goodness, how you put it is absolutely spot on. I wish I could control and continue with this 100. I did it for 100 days, and it was the biggest transformation of my life. And but I was too weak that I went on to yes, not being able to maintain it.
That's 100 days. That's a lot. So anyway, so the point we're seeing the connection between the two. But ultimately, anyway, going back to the original question, is that the enemy, the eternal enemy of the living entity, is lust. Okay, we're talking about sex desire, you know, or kama. We're talking about lust. That lust can manifest through any of the senses. For someone, maybe the tongue. For someone, maybe the genitals. For someone, maybe something else. For someone, maybe the abhiman, the desire to be recognized. But the glue is lust, which is basically the desire to enjoy separated from Krishna. That's the glue. And that usually manifests in the strongest form through sex life. But the enemy, as described in the Bhagavad Gita, is lust. And that's what we need to conquer over. I hope I'm not confusing things with this last comment. Okay, sloka quoted by Yamastami Prabhuji, 11.237, very beautiful sloka. Mahavira, many thanks. Can we please get the audio of Purusha Sukta? Yes, I can give that to you, no problem. Okay, Hare Krishna, thank you. So let's go to chapter 7. And now we having that Brahma is going to describe various incarnations. So I don't know, I'm not sure exactly how to do this with you. What do you prefer? We have how many incarnations? We have 25 incarnations being mentioned. Is from text 1 to text 9. Okay, let's read the first verse. Lord Brahma said, when the unlimited powerful, you see, what I find with the incarnations of the Lord, okay, in one sense, you know, all we need to do is to hear about those incarnations. It's, you know, we can, obviously you can explain, and it's the same principle with the Bhagavatam, but just to hear about the incarnation, it has a very purifying effect on our consciousness. And it gives us a focus. And each particular incarnation may bring about a particular aspect of the Lord, which we may find particularly attractive. So someone may be attracted to one incarnation more than the other. So I don't know, should we go through all the incarnations and read them all? Or would you like to just, you know, maybe discuss some? I'm happy to read them. It doesn't take long, but you tell me. It's 5 minutes. Okay, so we're almost finishing. Okay, so let's do it like this. I'll read a few. Lord Brahma said, when the unlimitedly powerful Lord assumed the form of a boar as a pastime just to lift the planet Earth, which was drowned in the great ocean of the universe called the Garbhodaka, the first demon, Hiranyaksha, appeared, and the Lord pierced him with his tusk. The Prajapati first begot Suyagya in the womb of his wife Akuti, and then Suyagya begot demigods headed by Suyama in the womb of his wife Dakshina. Suyagya as the Indradeva diminished by very great miseries in the three planetary systems, upper, lower, and intermediate. And because he saw diminished the miseries of the universe, he was later called Hari by the great father of mankind, namely Swayambhuva Manu. The Lord then appeared as the Kapila incarnation, being the son of the Prajapati Brahmana Kardama and his wife, Devahuti, along with 9 other women sisters. He spoke to his mother about self-realization, by which in that very lifetime she became fully cleansed of the mud of the material modes and thereby achieved liberation, the path of Kapila. The great sage Atri prayed for offspring, and the Lord, being satisfied with him, promised to incarnate as Atri's son, Dattatreya, Datta, the son of Atri. And by the grace of the lotus feet of the Lord, many Yadus, high Hayas, etc. became so purified that they obtained both material and spiritual blessings. To create different planetary systems, I had to undergo austerities and penance, and the Lord, thus being pleased with me, incarnated in the 4 Sanas, Sanaka, Sanat Kumara, Sanandana, and Sanatana. In the previous creation, the spiritual truth was devastated, but the 4 Sanas explain it so nicely that the truth at once became clearly perceived by the sages. So, I mean, it's interesting also to hear about the incarnations, yeah? And we hear, for example, like the 4 Kumaras, the purpose they came for is to, you know, share transcendental knowledge. And also, they came as brahmacharis, they came as renounced. And again, it gives us it sets a mood. See, like nowadays, the leaders of society, or the, you know, and when I'm talking about the leaders of society, not just in terms of politicians, but the leaders in such of the people follow sex, you know, like sensual people, you know, footballers, sports people, like musicians. Everybody is, the goal of life basically is to enjoy. That's the ethos in the material world. And that's the revolution that the Bhagavatam is bringing about. The Bhagavatam is presenting actually the goal of life is not to fulfill your material desires. The goal of life is to purify them. Fulfillment of material desires only leads to misery. Purification of material desires leads to bliss. And therefore we have these different incarnations, like Kapila, he came to expose the Sankhya philosophy. The Kumaras, they came also to explain, to give transcendental knowledge. And this is the purpose of the creation. The purpose of the creation is to give an opportunity to the living entities to go back home, back to Godhead through transcendental knowledge. Okay, so I'll read. It says, Brahmaji wanted to create the whole cosmic situation as it was in the previous millennium, and because in the last devastation, knowledge of the absolute truth was altogether erased from the universe, he desired that the same knowledge again be renovated. Otherwise, there will be no meaning in the creation, because transcendental knowledge is a prime necessity. The ever-conditioned souls are given a chance for liberation in every millennium of creation. This mission of Ramaji was fulfilled by the grace of the Lord when the 4 Sanas, named Sanaka, Sanat Kumar, Sanandana, and Sanatana, appeared as his 4 sons. So the importance of transcendental knowledge is clearly emphasized when we hear about the different incarnations of the Lord. And of course, Namo Brahmanya, Go Brahmana Hitayecha. The Lord, the Brahmanas are very dear to the Lord. Why? Because they are giving transcendental knowledge. The purpose of the material universe is to enlighten people. And I'll just finish with this because this is the context of what we're describing. Basically, is that, you know, different processes have been described. The superiority of devotional service has been established. And how the Lord, as the universal form, is pervading everything, how he remains aloof. He's the efficient cause. He's the material cause. Everything is depending on him. We cannot know him. And the only way to know him is through the process of bhakti. And the best process to know about him is to hear about him. And therefore, we're hearing about these incarnations. So we're going to finish here. Its time is over. For next week, we complete chapter 7. Chapter 8 is just questions by Parikshit Maharaj. It's a very nice chapter. It's easy to get through. And I will send the essay questions to the WhatsApp within, you know, today or tomorrow. Now time is over. So those who want to leave the class because you have other commitment, you can leave. But I have seen a few hands up. So you can stay if you want to hear the question and answer. But otherwise, feel free to go. Thank you very much. Today is Mohini Ekadashi. So like they say, the damage is done. All the benefits of hearing the Bhagavatam in the association of the devotees. It has taken place. It cannot be taken away. I was told this morning that particularly today is a very auspicious day because apparently today is Ekadashi, Dwadasi, and Trayodasi. So it's a very auspicious day. I deeply thank you for allowing me to speak on the Bhagavatam and to be in your association on this auspicious day. Hare Krishna.
Could I make a humble suggestion about the timings of the class?
Yes.
Just that, you know, most of the devotees wanted to go longer. Some devotees wanted to start earlier. So maybe what could be done, we start a half hour earlier, and those devotees that can only handle 2 hours, they get the recording and listen to the last half hour on their own. And then the majority of the devotees are satisfied and everyone's satisfied. I mean, we're on the internet anyway. There's a limit to the interactivity if they're not present, but we don't have nearly as much interactivity as we would with a live presentation. I mean, an on-site presentation. So anyway, just some thoughts.
I think you better discuss that amongst yourselves. I don't know. I think it's better if you just sort it out, you know. I am happy to do it either way. I'm here at your service. I can do 3 hours if you want. No problem.
Well, even just 2.5. But the point is that it's very difficult for everybody to come together except at class time. That's the challenge. You know, we're working that on our own.
Okay, so you're suggesting that instead of starting at the same time, we start half an hour earlier. Everybody comes half an hour earlier. And then those who are not able to attend for more than 2 hours, they can listen to the recording afterwards.
That's right.
And leave half an hour before.
Yeah, in other words, but that's important that recording goes out that very evening. We've had substantial delays on it, and then it's a connection.
But it's kind of very tight because, you know, you have class on Sunday. Are they going to be able to catch up? Anyway, those who want 2 hours, maybe you can respond to this on the chat box. If it's a good idea, good idea. If it's not a good idea, express it. Feel free. I don't want to create any pressure on anyone. This is my main objective. Okay. So if you're not comfortable with more than 2 hours, we keep it to 2 hours. Perfectly fine. Okay. We just covered it.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
I don't mind settling for 2 hours and 15, but I have another question, if I may. Is it possible? In verse 4.
No. Wait, because we're gonna change the train of thought. The philosophical question. Give me a second. Let's finish with this. Okay. What about having 2 hours and 15 minutes?
Fine.
And not recording. I don't like the idea of breaking up, and I don't think it's nice personally. Can those who want to have 2 hours extend 15 minutes more? Yes or not, please. If someone is 2 hours and 15 minutes is too much, just express it on the box. Okay? And it's fine, just say, but let's see. Ya Rade, okay, we go, yes, yes, yes. 3 hours. Okay. 2 hours, 15 minutes, ya we start early. Murari does, okay. 2 hours and 15 minutes. Okay, 2 hours and 15 minutes is okay. Anyone not okay with 2 hours and 15 minutes, please say now or be happy with the outcome. Okay, so shall we start 15 minutes earlier? How is that? For shall we start 15 minutes earlier? Next week, we start at 1:45 IST. Muli Manohar Prabhu, is that okay with you because you have services there in the temple? Maybe he already left. Okay, so we can inform the devotees. Some people have already left because they have services to do. So anyway, if someone has the private contact for Murli, we should check with him. Otherwise, we're gonna start at 1:45, and I will also give 15 minutes at the end for questions and answers extra. Okay, so we can just maybe stick, and then the recordings are there available. Okay, so I think it's fine. How is that?
Sounds nice.
Okay, so Asaf Prabhu, would you like to ask a question?
Yeah, verse 4 about the Sanat Kumar.
Yeah.
In the purport, it says that Prabhupada says that about Haihaya, that even though we achieved all perfection in devotional service, that's near the end, like 3 lines from the end. Even though Haihaya achieved perfection in devotional service, but he made an offense at the feet of a devotee. And therefore he was killed by Parashuram, Lord Parashuram. Can you, could you say something about his offense? What was his offense? And maybe even give reference.
Okay, let me look into that for next week. I don't remember the past time so well. This is, but when he says that even though he achieved all such perfection, there is different levels, degrees of perfection. Like in one sense, you could say that Bhava Bhakti, or the stage of Bhava, is perfection, is Sadhya. We have sadhana and sadhya. But we have the example with Bharat Maharaj, he also fell down from Bhava Bhakti, which in one sense, it could be considered perfection. So that's the angle I'm taking with that. If that was the doubt, yeah, you can achieve that, perfection can mean many things. So, he fell down because of an offense. So you cannot fall down from prema. They say that even from prema, if you commit offense, I mean, there is, sometimes you hear things like this, but definitely you can fall down from Bhava Bhakti. We have examples in the scriptures about that. I don't know if that answers your question.
My question was less a doubt. It was more like, what was his offense? Like,
I don't know. Why don't you research it for next week, and then you can expose it. You can bring it, okay? Let's see what maybe Vishwanath. Okay, let's read the purport by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He says something here. He says, Those who purify their bodies by the dust of his lotus feet attain perfection of yoga in order to enjoy in this world or the next world, or in order to gain enjoyment or liberation. Among those persons who were thus purified, Parashuram killed Haihaya in anger because of his great offense, even though Haihaya had attained an elevated status of yoga. So I guess it's not expressed there, but it's the same point. He had attained, a high stage, but he committed an offense. So in other words, be always careful about Vaishnava aparad, even great devotees, can succumb to Maya at that stage. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Dandava pranams. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Haribo.